Welcome, everyone. Today, you are going to read an inspiring story about a hidden shortcut to English fluency that many learners spend years searching for but rarely discover. This story is not about magic tricks, expensive courses, or memorizing thousands of difficult words. Instead, it reveals a simple truth that can completely change the way you learn English. Through this story, you will learn that fluency is not about being perfect. It is about building confidence, consistency, and real communication skills. The lesson from this story can help anyone who feels stuck, afraid of making mistakes, or frustrated with slow progress. So sit back, enjoy the story, and discover the shortcut to English fluency they never taught you. For many years, there was a young learner who dreamed of speaking English fluently. Every morning started with determination and hope. The learner would open grammar books, memorize vocabulary lists, watch lessons online, and spend hours studying rules. Whenever a new word appeared, it was written down in a notebook. Whenever a grammar lesson was taught, every detail was carefully memorized. The learner believed that fluency would arrive automatically after learning enough words and rules. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. The notebooks became thicker, the vocabulary lists became longer, and the grammar knowledge became stronger. Yet something important was missing. When it was time to speak English, fear appeared. The mind became blank. Simple sentences felt difficult. Even words that had been studied many times seemed to disappear. The learner could understand many lessons but could not speak with confidence. This situation created frustration. After working so hard, why was fluency still so far away? One evening, while feeling disappointed, the learner met an elderly traveler at a small library. The traveler had visited many countries and communicated with people from different cultures. During a casual conversation, the traveler asked a simple question. "How many English books have you studied?" The learner proudly mentioned dozens of grammar books and countless vocabulary notebooks. The traveler nodded and then asked another question. "How many stories have you lived with?" The learner looked confused because the question made no sense. The traveler smiled and explained. Most learners study English like a school subject. They collect words, memorize rules, and worry about mistakes. But language is not a subject. Language is a tool for understanding stories, ideas, emotions, and people. Fluency begins when you stop studying English and start living English. Those words stayed in the learner's mind for days. What did it mean to live English? Curious and hopeful, the learner decided to experiment. Instead of spending every evening memorizing long vocabulary lists, the learner started reading simple English stories. At first, the stories seemed too easy. There were familiar words, short sentences, and simple situations. The learner wondered whether such easy material could really improve fluency. However, the traveler's advice echoed in the mind. So the learner continued reading. Every story was read multiple times. Instead of focusing on individual words, attention was given to the meaning of the story. Gradually, something surprising happened. Common words and phrases started appearing again and again. Expressions that once felt difficult became familiar. Sentences began to sound natural. After several weeks, the learner took another step. Instead of simply reading stories, the learner started retelling them aloud. At first, it felt uncomfortable. The sentences were not perfect. Sometimes words were forgotten. Sometimes grammar mistakes happened. Yet the learner kept speaking. Every day, one story was read and then retold in simple English. Little by little, confidence began to grow. The learner realized that fluency was not coming from memorizing rules. It was coming from repeated exposure to real language. The brain was naturally absorbing patterns without forcing them. The process felt easier and more enjoyable than endless grammar exercises. Months passed, and the learner developed a new routine. Every morning began with listening to short English stories. Every afternoon included reading. Every evening involved speaking about what had been heard and read. The learner stopped worrying about sounding perfect. Instead, the focus shifted to expressing ideas. Whenever mistakes happened, they were treated as part of the learning journey rather than proof of failure. This small change created a huge difference. Fear slowly disappeared. Confidence slowly increased. English became less like an exam and more like a daily companion. One day, the learner attended an international event where visitors from many countries gathered. In the past, such situations would have caused anxiety and silence. This time was different. During conversations, words came naturally. Sentences were not always perfect, but communication happened smoothly. People understood the learner, and the learner understood them. Discussions continued for hours. There was laughter, storytelling, and genuine connection. At the end of the event, someone asked where the learner had studied English. The learner smiled because the answer was unexpected. There was no secret school, no expensive program, and no magical teacher. The biggest improvement had come from immersing in stories, listening regularly, reading consistently, and speaking without fear. After that experience, the learner became even more curious about the true nature of fluency. Observing successful language learners revealed a common pattern. They did not obsess over every grammar rule before speaking. They listened to large amounts of understandable English. They enjoyed stories, conversations, videos, and books. They repeated useful phrases naturally. Most importantly, they accepted mistakes as a normal part of growth. The learner finally understood the shortcut that so many people overlook. The shortcut was not a faster method. The shortcut was removing the unnecessary obstacles that slow people down. Fear, perfectionism, and endless memorization often create barriers. When those barriers disappear, learning becomes faster and more natural. As time continued, the learner started helping other English learners. Many of them shared the same frustrations. They knew hundreds of words but struggled to speak. They understood grammar but lacked confidence. They studied for years, yet felt stuck. Instead of giving them complicated advice, the learner shared one simple principle. Surround yourself with understandable English every day. Read stories. Listen to stories. Tell stories. Think in stories. The goal is not to memorize language, but to experience language. This advice sounded too simple to some people. However, those who followed it began seeing results. Their vocabulary improved naturally. Their listening skills became stronger. Their speaking confidence increased. Most importantly, they started enjoying the learning process. One learner, for example, had spent years trying to memorize advanced vocabulary. After switching to daily story-based learning, progress accelerated. Another learner who was afraid of speaking started recording short story summaries every day. Within months, speaking became smoother and more confident. Again and again, the same lesson appeared. Fluency grows when English becomes part of everyday life rather than a subject that exists only in textbooks. Stories provide context, emotion, repetition, and meaning. They help the brain remember language naturally because the brain is designed to remember experiences, not isolated information. Years later, the learner reflected on the entire journey. Looking back, it became clear that the biggest mistake had been believing that fluency depended on knowing everything before speaking. In reality, fluency developed through consistent exposure, practice, and patience. Thousands of small interactions with English created the foundation for confident communication. Every story read, every conversation attempted, and every mistake corrected contributed to progress. There was no dramatic breakthrough moment. Instead, fluency arrived quietly, built one day at a time. The learner also realized another important truth. Many people search for shortcuts because they want instant results. However, the real shortcut is finding a method you can enjoy and continue for a long time. Enjoyable learning leads to consistency. Consistency leads to improvement. Improvement leads to confidence. Confidence leads to fluency. This cycle is far more powerful than any quick-fix strategy. When learners enjoy the process, they naturally spend more time with the language. More time with the language creates better results. Today, countless learners continue searching for the secret to English fluency. Some look for perfect grammar systems. Others look for special courses or hidden techniques. While those tools can be helpful, they are not the true shortcut. The shortcut is simple. Fill your life with understandable English, especially stories. Listen every day. Read every day. Speak every day. Stop waiting to become perfect before using the language. Use the language now, and improvement will follow naturally. The path may seem ordinary, but its results are extraordinary.